Welcome back to Daily Curiosities. What's the difference between whiskey, Scotch, and bourbon? A lot of people think they're three completely different drinks. But here's the surprising part. Scotch and bourbon are both types of whiskey. And that's where most of the confusion begins. Think of whiskey as the big umbrella category. Scotch is whiskey made in Scotland. Bourbon is whiskey mostly made in America using corn. Simple enough, right? Well, once you look deeper, the ingredients, barrels, climate, and traditions completely change how each one tastes. And those differences are exactly why some people swear by smoky Scotch, while others love the sweeter taste of bourbon. So let's break it down in the simplest way possible. First, whiskey itself. Whiskey is the general name for a distilled drink made from fermented grains. Those grains can include barley, corn, rye, or wheat. After the grains are fermented and distilled, the liquid is aged in wooden barrels, which slowly gives it its color and flavor. So, whiskey isn't one specific drink. It's actually a huge family of drinks made all over the world. Irish whiskey, Japanese whiskey, Canadian whiskey, American whiskey. They all belong to the whiskey family. But each country uses different ingredients, different aging methods, and different traditions. And that's why they all taste different. Now let's look at Scotch. Scotch is simply whiskey that comes from Scotland. If it's made anywhere else in the world, it legally cannot be called Scotch. And Scotland takes those rules very seriously. Scotch is usually made mostly from malted barley. And one of the things that makes some Scotch famous is its smoky flavor. That smokiness often comes from burning peat during the drying process of the barley. Peat is a dense, earthy material found in Scottish wetlands. When it burns, the smoke gets absorbed into the grain and later becomes part of the flavor. That's why some Scotch tastes smoky, earthy, or even slightly like a campfire. But not all Scotch is smoky. Some are fruity, floral, smooth, or slightly sweet depending on the region where they're made. Another important detail is aging. Scotch must be aged in oak barrels for at least 3 years. And because Scotland has a cool climate, the aging process happens slowly, helping the flavors become more layered and complex over time. Now, compare that to bourbon. Bourbon is also whiskey, but it follows a very different set of rules. To legally be called bourbon, it must be made in the United States and contain at least 51% corn. That one ingredient changes everything. Corn naturally creates a sweeter flavor. So while Scotch often tastes dry or smoky, bourbon usually tastes richer, smoother, and sweeter. But the barrels matter too. One of the biggest reasons bourbon tastes so different is because it must be aged in brand new charred oak barrels. The inside of the barrel is burned before the whiskey goes in. As the bourbon ages, the charred wood releases flavors into the liquid. That's where the strong notes of caramel, vanilla, brown sugar, and toasted oak come from. Scotch often reuses older barrels. Bourbon uses brand new ones. And that alone creates a huge difference in flavor. So if you wanted the simplest explanation possible, here it is. Whiskey is the main category. Scotch is whiskey from Scotland, usually made from barley. Bourbon is American whiskey made mostly from corn. And those differences in grain, barrels, and location completely change the taste. It's a bit like coffee. Coffee is still coffee, but beans from different countries taste completely different depending on how they're grown and roasted. Whiskey works the same way. Now let's talk about flavor in a way that's easier to imagine. Scotch often tastes smoky, earthy, dry, or layered. Some people even notice hints of fruit, honey, spice, or sea salt depending on where it's made. Bourbon usually tastes warmer and sweeter. People often describe flavors like vanilla, caramel, cinnamon, brown sugar, or toasted wood. And general whiskey can fall anywhere in between, depending on the country and ingredients used. Irish whiskey is often smoother and lighter. Rye whiskey tends to taste spicier. Japanese whiskey is usually delicate and balanced. So even though all these drinks belong to the same whiskey family, they can taste surprisingly different from one another. And that's why people become loyal to certain types. People who enjoy bold, smoky flavors often love Scotch. People who prefer sweeter and smoother drinks usually lean toward bourbon. And people who enjoy lighter, easier flavors sometimes start with Irish whiskey. Another small detail many people never notice is the glass itself. Scotch is often served in a tulip-shaped glass that concentrates the aroma, helping people notice its subtle layers. Bourbon is commonly served in a wider glass that allows the sweeter aromas to open up more easily. Even the shape of the glass can slightly change how the drink feels and smells. So, in the end, whiskey, Scotch, and bourbon are not completely separate drinks. They're part of the same family. Whiskey is the umbrella category. Scotch is the Scottish version with traditions rooted in barley, slow aging, and sometimes smoky flavors. Bourbon is the sweeter American version shaped by corn and charred new oak barrels. And once you understand those simple differences, the labels suddenly become much less confusing. So the next time you see whiskey, Scotch, or bourbon on a shelf, you'll know that they're connected by the same basic idea, but transformed by different ingredients, countries, climates, and traditions. And that's why one glass can taste smoky and earthy, while another tastes sweet and rich, even though they both belong to the same whiskey family. Thank you for watching Daily Curiosities. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and share your favorite type of whiskey in the comments below. And as always, stay curious.